we're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. And we have Fed officials exposed. Now guys, are they really being exposed? We already know these type of things happen behind the scenes. We have Fed officials buying bonds while the Fed is buying bonds. We know when it came to the stock market, we had the Fed buying up all the stocks, just using BlackRock to do it. So we know all this manipulation happens, but we know for a fact nobody's going to audit the Fed. But what the Fed is trying to do is get rid of this old legacy system, and then blockchain is going to fix all these issues because they're selling the whole point that everything is going to be tracked. But we know they have a private blockchain where we won't be able to see anything. We know they work off the Hegelian dialectic, and that's all this is. And we have the Biden administration wants to ban crypto for ransomware payments. And what's interesting in this video, they stated that the ransomware attacks have slowed down. And guys, we already know who's behind these ransomware attacks. Because we know when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Residents are facing scrutiny after disclosing a number of large investments in stock trades over the past year. Steve Leisman is here with those details and the fallout. Steve?
Kelly, thanks. Amid an outcry about Fed officials owning and trading individual securities, an in-depth look by CNBC at Fed officials' own financial disclosures finds 3 who last year held assets of the same type the Fed itself was buying. Boston Fed President Eric Rosengren held several $100,000 worth of real estate investment trusts that owned mortgage-backed securities. He made 37 separate trades during 2020. The Fed last year purchased almost $700 billion in MBS. Rosengren announced last week he would sell these positions and stop trading while president. Dallas Fed President Robert Kaplan, he actively traded millions of dollars of individual, quote, made sure his personal savings and investment transactions complied with what was permissible under Fed ethics rules. Fed Chair Jay Powell held between $1.25 and $2.5 million of muni bonds. The bonds were purchased no later than 2019 and are just a small part of his overall portfolio. They were held, however, while the Fed last year bought $21 billion in munis. A Fed spokesperson telling CNBC that Powell had no say over the Fed's individual bond purchases and no say over the investments in his family's trust. A Fed ethics officer determined that these holdings did not violate Fed ethics rules. Richmond Fed President Thomas Barkin, he held 1.3 to 3 million in individual corporate bonds purchased prior to 2020. He held these bonds while the Fed last year bought 46.5 billion of corporate bonds. Barkin declined to comment. He had no say, however, over individual bond purchases by the Fed. These holdings or trades do not appear to be barred by Fed ethics rules, but they raise the question: should those rules have banned officials from holding or trading the same assets the Fed bought after it widened those types of assets it would purchase in response to the pandemic? The Fed's own code of conduct says officials should be, quote, careful to avoid any dealings or other conduct that might convey even an appearance of conflict between their personal interests, the interests of the system, and the public interest, Kelly.
Which is a pretty broad statement. So were the actions against the rules or not?
They don't appear to be against the rules, or at least the letter of the law, but Dennis Kelleher, CEO of the nonprofit Better Markets, tells CNBC that if such Fed actions are not against the rules, well, the rules ought to change. Quote, to think that such trading is acceptable because it's supposedly allowed by the Fed's current policies only highlights that the Fed policies are woefully deficient. And as you know, Kelly, in response to CNBC questions, a Fed spokesperson released a statement yesterday saying Fed Chair Jay Powell ordered a review last week of the Fed's rules surrounding, quote, permissible financial holdings by senior Fed officials.
I have about 19 questions, Steve, so I'll rattle off a few of them to kind of get at this direction. And number one, has this always been the case that Fed officials held a lot of securities while they were while they were in their positions? Number two, were most of these positions, or all of them, taken before these people became Fed officials? It sounds like they obviously were not, although a lot of them may have been made before the pandemic. But still, number three, is there any limit to how much trading they can do, or the kinds of, is there 30-day rules or something like that? And number four, I guess the most broad observation here is, based on their own code of conduct statement, anything that would give the appearance of a conflict of interest, this would certainly fall into that category. How could it not?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you make that judgment and others as well as to number four. As to number three, I believe, I'm not sure. I think the issue here, the broader issue, Kelly, I'll just try to take all three with this one comment, which is that the Fed dramatically changed the assets that it purchased last year. What happened is that they didn't change their ethics rules to account for this. It seems more like one of omission rather than commission. In the case of Powell and Barkin, they both previously owned those shares, did not buy any additional during the year. In the case of Rosengren, he bought it all through the year, and his ethics officer, I guess, signed off on all this. You can see that there is a blacked out signature on his disclosure form, so he did not believe he was breaking at least the letter of the ethics rules. Subsequently, however, well, what do they think? Well, Kaplan and Rosengren both said, hey, we shouldn't be doing this, so perhaps they're now acknowledging they shouldn't have done it to me.
Reports the Biden administration is set to roll out steps curbing the use of cryptocurrency and ransomware payments. Eamon Javers is here with the details. Eamon?
Kelly, the White House and the Treasury Department are now declining to comment on this Wall Street Journal report from earlier today. What the Journal is reporting here is that the Biden administration, as early as next week, is set to take an array of actions to crack down on cryptocurrency transactions involving ransomware and cyber attacks on American companies. Not at all clear necessarily what that array of actions will include, but part of this, they say, will be sanctions on some of the entities involved. What they would need to do in order to be effective here, the Journal reports, is to target crypto platforms that obscure transactions, those so-called crypto mixers, and also digital wallets that receive ransom payments. It's not entirely clear what the full panoply of options are that the Biden administration is considering, but clearly the cryptocurrency transactions are a key part of the whole engine that runs this ransomware scam that we've seen over the past year or two really just cripple large portions of corporate America. So the Biden administration's thinking here, according to the Wall Street Journal, is what you need to do is go after the money. If you can block those payments, then maybe you can do something to disincentivize the ransomware itself and overall protect American companies. We'll see what the Biden administration comes up with. As I say, so far, no comment from the White House or from the Treasury Department on the Journal's reporting.
All right, Eamon, stay right there. Let's bring in Lee Reiners. He's Duke Law School's Global Financial Markets Center Executive Director. Lee, it's great to have you. You've been calling for literally going as far as to ban crypto in order to fight ransomware. What do you think of this approach?
Well, I think this is a welcome development and is long overdue, but let's not fool ourselves that this is going to solve the ransomware plague that has impacted so many small businesses and medium-sized businesses for the last several years in this country. At the end of the day, Kelly, as long as there are crypto exchanges abroad, primarily in Russia and other Eastern European countries, that are willing to convert crypto to fiat currency, we are still going to have a financial incentive for these hackers to engage in ransomware attacks.
Eamon, what would your response to that be? And it's interesting that this story broke today because I was thinking about how quiet it's been on the ransomware front lately. What does that tell you?
Well, it has been quiet on the ransomware front. I've been talking to some experts on why that might be, and they think there might be a general cooling off in the wake of the Colonial Pipeline hack, in which all of this just got too hot for the criminals. So there's some sense here that the criminals are lying low and waiting for the heat to blow over, and there might be some effort here by the Russian government to crack down on some of this, telling these criminals to go to ground for at least a time and let some of the heat blow over here in terms of the international pressure. But look, Lee's point is a good one. The challenge that the Biden administration is going to face here is that most of the activity taking place is offshore, outside U.S. legal jurisdiction. So how do you deal with that? Well, you can impose sanctions, and that's something that we've seen the U.S. Treasury Department do time and again with sort of nefarious actors in other spheres of international relations, going after those assets, trying to freeze them, trying to block their access to the international banking system overall. The U.S. has enormous sway over that. If they can inconvenience those people or freeze them out of the financial system altogether, they might be able to have some impact, but it's going to be tough and it's going to be indirect.
Lee, would you acknowledge that it has been quiet on the ransomware front? Especially, I thought it was notable that Labor Day weekend passed without any major events. After that had previously, Memorial Day, other holidays, we had often seen something big go down. So is there something maybe going on behind the scenes, or maybe these efforts, these overt efforts are also working, and does that tell us that perhaps this kind of influence can have a big impact?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has been quiet, as Eamon alluded to. I think the backlash from the Colonial Pipeline hack, I mean, that's dealing with critical infrastructure. So, of course, that's going to draw a lot of attention. But I've called for, a ban of cryptocurrency simply because the economic cost and national security costs, vastly outweigh whatever marginal benefits. And I'm not even sure, what benefits crypto provides other than an ability to get rich quick. So I've heard from so many businesses, small businesses in this country that have been impacted by, ransomware attacks. They're the real silent majority here. The most vocal proponents in this space are people who have a vested interest. The folks who come on this network every day to pump cryptocurrency have skin in the game. So these are welcome developments. I certainly think that Vladimir Putin is playing a role here. There needs to be international collaboration, though, at the end of the day. Just like banking regulation is only as strong as its weakest link, the same is true for cryptocurrency. And so we need countries like Russia, North Korea, and others to come to the table, and that doesn't appear likely anytime soon.
This yesterday on the panel that I think central bank digital currencies were concocted in hell by Satan himself. They are incredible control by governments over everybody's bank account, and they are they're going to create a void of privacy for every individual citizen. I think they're horrible, but I think that's where they...
Uber, Bitcoin, self-driving cars. Combine those three together, and you have the self-owning taxi. A car that is a corporation that owns itself, pays for the car lease, the car insurance, and the gasoline from the revenues it makes, giving passengers a ride, and there's not a single human involved in that matter.
The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID Stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.